was really intrigued by the level of crazy in this video. So stick with me, and I'm going to tell you about Michele Summers MacNeil. I'm gonna apologize for my camera going out halfway through the last video. I don't know if it's gonna do that in this one. We haven't quite figured out why it is doing that, but hopefully you'll be asleep and you won't even notice. So, okay. Michele Summers was born in 1957. She was raised in Concord, California. From everything that I could find out, Michele was like the best daughter. She was a straight-A student. She was involved in so many activities throughout school. As a child, she was exceptional at a lot of things. She played the violin, she joined the cheerleading squad, and later on in her life even became a model. She was a member of the LDS Church, which is the Church of Jesus Christ and the Latter-day Saints. Her sister, Linda, described Michele as a dream of a big sister. She was popular, she was athletic, she was great in school, and she loved her music and playing the violin. We were all very proud of her. So, Michele met Martin MacNeil at a church event. He was born in 1956, and they kind of had this whirlwind sort of thing. They had this courtship, and then they eloped on February 21st of 1978, when Michele was just 21 years old. They decided to live in Pleasant Grove, Utah, and they were, by all accounts, like the picture of a perfect family, at least on the surface. They both wanted children, and in fact, they had 4 of them within their first 5 years of marriage, which I cannot imagine trying to chase 4 little kids around, but they actually ended up with 8 children. They adopted 3 of them from the Ukraine, and then one of their children had a daughter. So their children are Rachel, Vanessa, Alexis, Damien, Giselle, Elle, Sabrina, and their granddaughter, Ada. Their daughter, Alexis, I will be talking about a lot in this video because she's pretty pertinent to the case, and I really feel like she is to Michele what I am to my mom, like her voice, you know? So Alexis says all she cared about, is her family. Her family was her life. But we have to back up just a little so I can tell you about some other stuff. So before Michele and Martin got to having kids, they were only married for 4 months when Martin went to jail. 6 months for forgery, theft, and fraud. Now, this wasn't the first time that good old Martin MacNeil would be accused of theft or fraud. In fact, it will be a recurring theme in their marriage and in this video. Martin was the medical director of a facility called the Utah State Development Center. He was also a former physician. He served in the United States military, and he was a lawyer. Now, people that knew Martin said that he made sure to let people know he wasn't just a doctor, he was also a lawyer, which I guess he kind of thought people would be extremely impressed by that. Michele's sister said he was the kind of guy that walked into a room and just sort of took it over. Like, he was the kind of guy that was like, look at me, like a peacock. He was above everyone, and she said she never liked him. He seemed arrogant to her. obsessed with losing weight and his appearance, and he would even go to the tanning salon. I thought, okay, midlife crisis, but Michele, on the other hand, began to suspect that good old Martin was having an affair, and she confronted him about it. He turned the tables on her and suggested that she should also be making changes in her appearance. Martin MacNeil decides his wife should get a full facelift, just straight out of the blue. Alexis says, my mom never talked about that before. She had never been into plastic surgery, and looking at the pictures of her, she didn't need a facelift. She was gorgeous. She apparently wanted to lose weight and get her blood pressure under control before deciding to have this surgery. But instead, Martin pushed her to have this surgery like practically right away. She reportedly thought that this surgery would help her marriage to Martin, so she agreed. At a consultation, Dr. MacNeil asked plastic surgeon Dr. Scott Thompson to prescribe basically what is like a whole cabinet of medicines for his wife for aftercare, and I could not believe this list. Dr. Thompson, why he did this, I don't know, complied with Martin's request. They wrote her Lortab, Ambien, Valium, Percocet, Phenergan, and Keflex. Now, later on, when the doctor was interviewed about this case, he said he felt like it was just too much, and he never prescribed Valium or oxycodone for his patients because he felt like they were too strong. So why did you do it? So Michele had the surgery and everything went fine. But when she came out of surgery, she was in a lot of pain, and Alexis said she looked pretty bad. After Michelle's first night at home, Martin told Alexis she didn't need to stay. He said, I'll take care of her medicines tonight. You go back to school. Well, Alexis wasn't really feeling that, so the next morning she comes back, and when she goes in, Michele is completely sedated and totally out of it. And Alexis confronts her father, and he says he had given Michele too much medicine because she threw up, so he had given her even more medicine. Alexis, who is in medical school at this time, is completely frustrated with her father's actions, and she's like, no, I'll take over her medicines from here on out. Now, from this point, Michele is still wearing eye patches, so she couldn't even see what he was giving her. So, she was pretty smart, though, and she told Alexis, give me each of the pills so I can feel them with my fingers to be able to tell. If he tries to give me something else, I'll know. Over the next few days, Michele appeared to be recovering pretty well, but Alexis did finally have to return to school, and right before she did, Michele kind of confided in her in what I can only believe is horrifying to Alexis now. Michele told her daughter Alexis, if anything happens to me, make sure it was not your dad. She also reportedly confronted Martin that same day about his calls and texts to his mistress, a woman named Gypsy Willis. By April 10th, 2007, Alexis left her mother's bedside as she appeared to be recovering well, and Alexis returned to medical school. On April 11th, Alexis talked to her mom on the phone at 8:44 a.m. Alexis was driving back to her apartment from school. She says Michele said she was doing great, and in fact, she was feeling so well that she was going to pick up the littles from school that day. Martin had dropped the girls off at school that morning and proceeded to go to work. He was, in fact, presented with an award 6 a.m. Apparently, Martin told then just 6-year-old Ada to go upstairs and check on her mom. Ada found Michele unresponsive and face down in their bathtub, fully clothed. Michele was just 50 years old at this time. Now, what happens next is a bit of a blur because it relies on Martin, who we don't really believe, and 6-year-old Ada, and the 911 operators. Martin calls 911 and says a couple of things and hangs up. He doesn't appear to be too frantic that his daughter had just found his wife drowned in the bathtub. It also seems kind of forced, like he's trying to sound concerned, but just kind of being, I don't know, strange. He also says many times in these couple of phone calls, "Don't worry, I'm a physician. I am administering CPR." He also, during this period of time, tells their son, Damien, to get rid of all of these medicines that Michele has been prescribed so that they could keep her plastic surgery a secret. I don't know how you would keep that a secret. She's not very far out of the post-op period, but whatever. I also think that it was this reason. Alexis wanted to count the medicines to see how much her mom had taken, but by the time she arrived, they had already been flushed down the toilet. He told Alexis that it was making him too sad to see these medicines, and as soon as she heard that, she was like, no, this is not right. Something is not right. In the days after Michele's death, Martin's behavior starts to arouse some suspicions. His statements regarding finding Michele were pretty inconsistent. He told authorities that he saw her with her head underwater from the side of the tub. That differed from what Ada told the police. Then he claimed to have performed CPR on her, but it would have been difficult to carry out based on how her body was found when the EMTs arrived. Martin and Michelle's older children pushed for another look into their mother's death simply because of the circumstances that surrounded it. Michelle's autopsy stated that her cause of death was a cardiovascular accident. Police then said she also died of natural causes. I feel like a heart attack after a major surgery isn't necessarily a natural cause, but whatever. They said natural causes, and it was accidental. The medications in her system were not at toxic levels, but the examiner said the medications could have led to sedation and heart arrhythmia, resulting in cardiac death. Michelle's children and family just did not believe this at all. However, the police never really questioned them, and they believe Martin's story that it was an accident. They closed the case slightly 2 months after Michelle's passing. Alexis really kind of was like, wait a minute, she just turned 50. I mean, sure, she had a few health issues. She had a little bit of high cholesterol and a little high blood pressure, but I mean, who doesn't? So I thought, okay, if this is a healthy woman that died, there would be some sort of police investigation, right? Their police report in my mother's death is about 2.5 paragraphs long. But Alexis was not about to let this go. She remembers looking at her father's phone about a month before his death, and she printed out all of these records, and Michele and her had realized about this woman, Gypsy Jillian Willis. When Gypsy was spoken to, she said, "We met online. He sent me a message. He asked me what I knew about quantum physics, and we just had instant chemistry. He was tall, he was handsome, he was a doctor, he was extremely well-spoken." Gypsy said, "Oh, I knew he was married, but that didn't ring any alarm bells for me. I wasn't looking for a serious relationship. He told me he had the perfect life, she shows up at Michelle's funeral, which Martin had explicitly forbade many of Michelle's own family from attending. Alexis says he also demanded that Michele be buried just 3 short days after she passed. Rachel and Alexis, at this point in time, volunteered to take care of the younger kids, so they didn't, Michele was doing that, but Martin had another plan in mind. He told them, "Oh, I found the perfect nanny." And Alexis was like, "Oh, what's her name?" And he says, "Oh, I think it's Jillian." And Alexis was like, "Dad, really? Gypsy Jillian Willis?" And she just completely confronted him. She was like, "I know that woman. I know that this is the woman that Mom thought you were having an affair with, and you are not to bring her in this house." But Martin did not listen, and within weeks of Michelle's death, Gypsy moved right in anyway. She says that she did move in to help him with the kids, but when the two had the opportunity, they snuck off and slept together. When Alexis questioned Martin about this, he threatened her. He said, "If you fight me, I will get you thrown out of medical school." He actually said to his own daughter, "I will take you down." And Alexis says she was then told she needed to leave because she was not nice to Gypsy. Both Alexis and her older sister Rachel were kicked out of the house without their keys, without their shoes. Rachel expressed the fact that Martin wanted to make it known that she wanted to make it known that she was telling him, it was either Gypsy or his kids, and he clearly chose the nanny. So, as I said, her children were really suspicious of Michelle's death, so they continued to fight for further investigation. Alexis would go to the authorities, she went to the governor's office, she went to every single newspaper in Utah, just trying to get someone to listen. She said, "My mother was murdered. My mother was murdered, and no one would help her." I cannot imagine just the exhaustion of that. But the family did eventually get results. Doug Whitney and Jeff Robinson, investigators with the Utah County Prosecutor's Office, were assigned to investigate Michelle's case. Jeff Whitney obtained an investigative subpoena digging into Martin's background as far back as college and also his postgraduate career. Jeff said, "If you take a pyramid and you build it with bricks and you pull those foundational bricks out, you have nothing. It crumbles." Jeff said he discovered Martin MacNeil's entire career was based on 2 falsified transcripts from different colleges so he could gain admission to medical school. "I found the transcript used for Martin to get into medical school was totally falsified," he said. "Instead of taking his transcript and altering it, he got someone else's. The transcript was completely fake." He also uncovered that Martin had been discharged from the military after briefly serving because he claimed he was schizophrenic and hearing voices. Martin MacNeil collected $3,000 a month for more than 3 decades from Veterans Affairs after serving less than 2 years in the United States military. When he was in his early 20s, he opened a checking account. He wrote fraudulent checks to furnish a house. He bought jewelry, including diamond rings and watches, 60 pairs of socks, dozens of pairs of shoes, and a year's supply of chocolate-covered cherries. Martin was convicted of forgery and grand theft, and he went to jail for 180 days, just 4 months after he married Michele, remember? And he was on felony parole when he got into medical Gypsy said the plot for a new identity was Martin's idea, that this was Martin's activity. I'm really sorry if you can hear my computer fan, it has just chimed in. She said when she got together with Martin, she had a lot of tax debt, probably in the range of $50,000 or $60,000. She knew that they were breaking the law, and she really didn't want to do it, but Martin said it was the best way to do it. It was just temporary, right? And it's not going to hurt anybody. No one will notice. And Gypsy said she trusted him because he was a lawyer, so he knew what was best. Martin was a very powerful man. He was very influential, and I just assumed he knew what he was doing. He had been successful all of his life. Gypsy used the identity Jillian Giselle MacNeil, and Martin sometimes claimed she was his wife, and sometimes claimed she was his daughter. He transferred the house to her before it had been in Michelle's name. Michelle's sister Linda discovered that Giselle was still back overseas, and she sent her daughter Jill Harper to go there, and Harper found her cousin was living in completely deplorable conditions. There's one room, it has a pull-out sofa bed. It's her sister, her sister's husband, and their 2 kids, and they all share this one pull-out sofa bed. There was a little pan on the floor, and I was like, what is this in the bathroom? And Giselle said, well, that's our shower. You just stand in there. I mean, I don't know what movie I've ever seen anything that horrible in. Now, showering and things are different overseas. I follow a girl that lives in Denmark, and it's completely crazy to me that her shower head is just on the wall, and the drain is just like in the middle of the room, so there's nothing to catch the water. Like, she couldn't take a bath if she wanted to. So I could see how that would be really alarming to someone from America who has never seen something like that, but still, I mean, it's terrible. So, once Martin and Gypsy's false identity plot was uncovered by authorities, they were both arrested. They were convicted of identity theft and other federal charges. They were sentenced to serve time at separate prisons. They both also pled guilty to state fraud charges. While Martin was incarcerated, Whitney and Robinson continued their investigation into Michelle's death. They succeeded in convincing the state medical examiner's office to take another look at her toxicology report, and it showed what amounted to be a toxic cocktail of drugs. As a result, the manner of death was then changed from natural to undetermined. This made the door wide open for prosecutors to pursue criminal charges. In July of 2012, Martin MacNeil was released, but prosecutor Chad Grunander was fully prepared to put him right back behind bars. After less than 2 months of freedom, Martin went back into custody at a Utah County jail on a $1 million cash bond, facing murder charges in the death of his wife, Michele. On October 17, 2013, he finally went on trial for the murder of Michele MacNeil, more than 6 years after his children were pushing for him to face justice. Dr. Scott Thompson, the plastic surgeon that performed Michele's facelift, took the stand to explain the litany of medications she was prescribed. He said, as I mentioned before, he wrote the prescriptions because Martin had asked him to. He was a physician, and he would be the one taking care of her. Dr. Thompson said he would not have prescribed the medication if Martin had not been a doctor, and it was never his intention when he prescribed them that she take all of them together. Most of the MacNeil daughters took the stand and testified about their relationship with their father, how their trust had slowly eroded, and how they came to believe he had killed their mother. To actually be in that courtroom and to have my father having to listen was kind of surreal, Alexis said. While While the judge did not permit Alexis to tell the jury that her mother had said, "If anything happens to me, make sure it wasn't your dad," they ruled it hearsay. Alexis's testimony was nonetheless pretty powerful in this case. She testified her mother had told her that Martin kept trying to give her medicine, despite the fact that she was throwing up. She also told the jury her mother had asked to feel each of the pills to know what her husband was giving her, as her eyes were bandaged and she couldn't see. Alexis's brother Damien and his girlfriend were at home at the time. Or they were at that home at the time, he didn't live there. His girlfriend Eileen testified that Damien's father had asked Damien to flush Michelle's pills down the toilet. She explained that she helped because Damien asked her to, and Martin had just lost his wife and she wanted to help. One of Martin's previous lovers, a woman named Anna Osborne Walthall, also took the stand to discuss the disturbing pillow talk they had shared. She told the jury that Martin at one point bragged about how he could induce a heart attack, but make it look like it was naturally caused. Gypsy testified she portrayed herself as married to Martin and that their marriage day was April 14th, 2007, which is the day of Michele MacNeil's funeral. Martin MacNeil committed a fraud on federal government with Gypsy in applying for spousal military ID for Gypsy. On that application for that ID card, they put down, as far as a marriage date, the date Michele was buried. That was a very significant piece of evidence, said Prosecutor Germander. From my perspective, it was akin to an admission. I killed Michele. I killed my wife to be with this woman, Gypsy. Martin's demeanor in court was always very stoic, he added. The only time he showed emotion was when Gypsy was on the stand testifying. He could be observed wiping away tears. The two of them wrote letters to each other while they were both incarcerated for the fraud they had committed. Gypsy was forced to read those letters to the jury on the stand. A man named Jason Poirier, who had served time with Martin at the local county jail leading up to the trial, testified Martin explained to him why and how he had killed his wife. He said it was going downhill and they were trying to get his money, and she was not going to let him keep cheating on her. He was just not going to allow that. He pretty much just opened up about it. He said he'd given her some sleeping pills and got her to get in the bathtub. After a 22-day trial, Martin MacNeil's fate was in the hands of the jury. They deliberated for 11 hours, and on November 9th of 2013, more than 6 years after Michele MacNeil's death, the jury found Martin MacNeil guilty of both murder and obstruction of justice. I've been fighting for this for so long. I never thought we'd come to this day, Alexis said. We are just so happy he can't hurt anyone else. At the sentencing hearing, the MacNeil family asked for the maximum sentence. Gernander said, I remember them talking about the lack of remorse they could see in their dad. In fact, Martin was always joking and laughing throughout the sentencing with his attorneys and showing a complete lack of respect for his own daughters. The judge sentenced him to 15 years to life in prison. I do believe Gypsy was involved in my father's death, Alexis said. She was the motive, and I know that she knows more than she portrayed in court. Gypsy never faced any charges for Michelle's murder, and she denied knowing anything about it or having anything to do with it. Gernander said we couldn't prove she was involved as either a direct participant in Michelle's murder or even an accessory. We do believe she was the motive, but we simply have not had the evidence to prove she murdered Michele or was an accessory to her death. Gypsy says, I don't believe Martin murdered Michele. We have to respect the jury, but I don't. I would say to Michele MacNeil's family, I am sorry for any part I played in anyone's pain. Now the family's mission is to do its best to erase the husband and father's dark legacy to keep their mother's memory alive. Alexis became a doctor. She got married. She successfully adopted sisters, Ada, Sabrina, and Elle, and she has 3 kids of her own as well. She changed her last name, MacNeil, to her mother's maiden name, Summers, and she now practices family medicine. She said she wanted to graduate having her mother's maiden name. She didn't want to be Dr. MacNeil. I don't want to have any part of my dad. Alexis's sisters are doing well too. Ada graduated high school. Rachel is in school now to become a social worker, and she visits her sister Alexis nearby nearly every weekend. She loves being an aunt. Both Sabrina and Elle had their first children this year. Alexis said they're just beautiful, wonderful girls, and that's something I was personally so blessed with. I don't know what I would have done without having my sisters to fight for. In a fun fact that I found, and I have never reported on a case where this has happened, her husband's name was removed from Michele MacNeil's gravestone. A volunteer agreed to sand off the words "wife of Martin" from her plaque forever. Every year on their mother's birthday, the sisters get together to celebrate over chocolate cake, which was Michele's favorite. She would have been 65 this year. And to close this case out, before I tell you what I think, Martin MacNeil might have been eligible for parole September 19th, 2031. But he killed himself April 9th, 2017, at the age of 60. Martin had access to the prison's greenhouse, and he knew of a spot where the cameras could not see him. He used a hose and a natural gas line that was meant for a heater for the greenhouse. He was later found by 2 inmates who tried to revive him. He had been suicidal since he went to prison, and fellow inmates believed he had killed himself because he had lost his last appeal. And I just have to say, good freaking riddance to that guy. I'm really sorry about all the background noise in this video. I hope it is not too terribly distracting. I will see if Sean can edit out part of the helicopter flying over. I don't live terribly far from a hospital, so anytime that there's like a life flight or anything like that, that's when the helicopters pass over. I feel like it's happening more frequently, which is really, really sad, but okay. So let's talk about the craziness that is Martin MacNeil, right? Okay. It's another case of, I'm married, I'm unhappy, I met someone else, I gotta get rid of my wife, right? I don't get it. As many cases as I've reported that this has happened to, I don't understand why people just don't get divorced. Just divorce her. You're mad she's gonna take your money. Well, technically it's not even your money anyway. Your whole life is a complete tower of fraud. I cannot believe that he managed to get into medical school and managed to become a lawyer completely fraudulently. It is bananas to me. I mean, my brain doesn't even work that way. So even in that, it tells me he's completely duplicitous as far as motives and actions in life. I was really glad to find out that Alexis had adopted her 3 little sisters, because I always worry about like foster care and things of that nature. It's just sad. The whole situation was just completely... Of course my neighbor's dog is barking now. I'm filming later than normal, and I think that's why there's all this unnecessary noise, because usually I film really early. things that not necessarily are resulting in people dying, which escape from Alcatraz, but just